Welcome back for another installment of Fellowship of the Rink, episode 30, brought to you by our incredible local friends in Waggle Golf and Barrel Theory Beer Co. Back in the saddle again. Joe Smith of The Athletic, bringing you all the insider info on your Minnesota Wild and Gophers hockey. Joe, you have had a lot going on. Welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a little crazy. Took our 3-month-old on his first plane flight to Michigan for a family wedding. So that was more nerves beforehand than actually during. But like everybody's been on planes with crying children, right? Like we've all been there, right? And like it's different being there as the parent, right? And no one feels worse than the parent. No one wants the kid to be quiet more than the parent, not the person sitting next to them. So, but he did pretty well. Only like an hour flight to Traverse City. Made it through the speeches at the wedding, got a little dance in, and then met grandma, met the aunts. So that was a success. So we're hoping that can be a little start of something, but baby steps.
And I mean, burying the lead here with planting some roots. Sounds like you're going to stick around at least for a little bit here.
Yeah. We closed on a house in St. Paul, and so we're moving across. We started in Minneapolis and enjoyed living here, but it's going to be a great community in Highland to great schools and right by the river too, and just so a good way to experience both sides of the Twin Cities. So. Stick around for a little longer at least, seeing how it goes. But so far so good with people in Minnesota and like the market for Wild hockey and Wild readership. And so we're truly blessed that fans are sticking with us and they're sticking with the team. So we'll see if we have something different to write about this year.
There we go. Yeah, let's hope there's something different to write about. It feels like based on the summer, it's like all just been very like standard, no big changes, nothing to really like write home about. But it's going to be a weird year if we're healthy, like it's a completely different team, right? There's a lot of guys that Jared Spurgeon being the easy one to roll into. Do we know it is the expectation that he's back to start the year?
Yeah, he's there. Bill Guerin said the week or so ago that he'll be ready to go full blast. So I would expect for training camp to start. He'll be ready to go. He's been skating with the guys for a while now in the summer at Tria. So we gotten reports he's been looking good. So I guess that's a question for him. Is like I'm sure he wonders himself is like can he get back to that level he was before the injury? To have back and hips, surgeries is not an easy thing. So if they can get Jared Spurgeon back to where he was, pre last year when he played so well, Middleton and obviously one of the top like smaller defensemen in the league, the top four with him and Middleton and Faber and Brodin be really really good. So I think that'll be one of the question marks for camp is how does Spurgeon look? How does he handle like the first big contact and from preseason and all that stuff. So, because losing him beginning of the year, right at end preseason, really kind of did a part in derailing the season last year. It wasn't all that, but it was kind of sign of things to come where the team doesn't have enough depth to lose a lot of the guys that they did at the time. So if you have him and you have Foligno coming back, if you have Goudreau, who was injured all year, a lot of the guys that had some maybe underperforming seasons that they kind of get back to their level, then, this is going to be a very competitive team. A team will have to fight for a playoff spot, but you're right. There's not a lot of splashy additions and no, the biggest splash will probably be next summer when they have more cap space and everything. And what Wild fans hope is signing a Kirill Kaprizov will be the biggest next summer. So, but yeah, as far as from a writing standpoint, there wasn't a ton of new guys to tackle. We'll tackle some of them in training camp, Yakov Trenin and obviously the prospects that are going to make a run at the roster spot.
For sure. And I mean, to your point, the Kaprizov negotiations looming. a lot of Wild fans had big reactions to the Leon Draisaitl contract, getting 14 mil, which is no joke. That resets the market. I know Russo tried to downplay it a little bit and didn't think that it's directly comparable or that Kaprizov would get, necessarily what Draisaitl did. Then we've got Elliot Friedman, who thinks otherwise and thinks like he named specifically Kirill Kaprizov and, of course, Rantanen over with the Colorado Avalanche being in the midst of negotiations. What are your thoughts here? Like, does the Draisaitl contract have a big impact on what we do with Kaprizov, or is it more so just like a side note?
Well, like Leon Draisaitl is obviously one of the top maybe 3 players in the world, like he and his playoff success, was other than like Kucherov, like has been really good. I mean, he's been up one of the best there too. And so
I think he's been the best, hasn't he?
Yeah. I mean, I think, well, like the runs that Kucherov had on like were unbelievable, like in those cup runs. But as far as like Draisaitl got paid what he was worth. And I think he and McDavid are in different categories. Like I think Kirill Kaprizov is clearly the Wild's best player. Clearly, I think one of the top 12 players in the world, like just from watching him. So I think that contract like that, anytime that happens, it does raise the bar a little bit, or at least from the agent's perspective of like, okay, this is a new benchmark for the best. And where does everybody else slot in underneath there? Like McDavid will probably be like 16 or whatever, but like
McDavid's going to be 16. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, then it goes like below that, so
Sure.
I think, I think, Kaprizov's going to get paid. I don't think it should be a blank check, but I think he's going to get a bump from what he is now. I don't know if I don't know if he's going to be in that 13, 14 range though. I mean, maybe he has another killer season and they win a playoff round or two and all of a sudden things are different a little bit, but it raises the bar across the league as far as a new benchmark, as highest paid, like it does for NFL, right? Quarterbacks, like, well, guy signs and all of a sudden he's the 5th highest paid quarterback 3 weeks later, Yeah. So, but I don't know if it necessarily means that, okay, Leon Draisaitl got 14. This means that Kirill's going to go right underneath there, or like, or match it, or I don't think he's going to go past that one for sure. But I think you're looking at obviously in double digits, just more so. I don't think it's going to be at 14. I think it might be. Is it 11? Is it, depends on how long the term is, right? If it's 11 or 12 or like, it's hard to say right now, but like, I think he's not going to pass Draisaitl and it won't be at 14, but it'll be definitely the highest paid player in franchise history.
Yeah. And I slight counter argument, because I agree with you completely. Like Draisaitl and McDavid are in a tier of their own. I think for Kaprizov, it's different because I think he and his agent are very aware of what he means to the franchise. And I do think that there's an extra element there where it's like he's the best player we've ever had. We saw what happened when we let Gaborik walk to free agency. It's just a little bit more nuanced, and it's a deal getting signed a year later. Like if the cap goes up enough, maybe there is more flexibility or he's going to push for it. And we're never going to know this, but I would love to know what the line is that Billy Guerin would draw in the sand for, like, here's the number at which we walk away and decide we're going to trade him, right? Because I'm of the mind that I think it's going to be 13 something. That's where my head's at, but I hope that you're right because that would be way better.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, he's already over 9 now, right? So, like, going to 12 is not that far, right? Or like, not that much considering where the cap is and where it's going up. And like you said, it is kind of the tax of, pay a little higher because I'm not necessarily you have to overpay, but like, you want to keep your best player here. And you want to be able to, especially if it's a longer term deal, right? Like if he goes 8, like we're talking like, major deal. Like if he wants to go 5 or whatever, what the AAV might be, but
sure.
I think he realizes in the scheme of things, and we'll be writing it all year. Like this is the clock is ticking. Like this is the year you gotta show them that you can win and compete before getting that point next July where you can sign them. Because hey, I would not blame him at all if he thought long and hard about it, because you only have so many years in your prime in your career, and only have so many chances to win a Stanley Cup. So I've been heard anything different about him not wanting to stay. It's just more so it's clear as day with the timing of everything, how this year's gonna have to go.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for every like post game write up that you and Russo do, having a little footnote that's like, so after this game early November against the Toronto Maple Leafs, here's where we think Kaprizov's thoughts are on whether or not he'd like to stay or leave.
Yeah.
Like that's what the fans are going to be clamoring for. And they're going to probably write it themselves. You could probably just pluck that right from Twitter.
Oh God. Yeah. The comment section is going to be ridiculous. Like have the Kirill meter like up, wherever higher, like going back and forth. Like
I'm making a Kirill meter. It's happening.
Yeah. but clearly he's going to get paid, and the Wild are going to do whatever they can to convince him to stay. And I just think that, that's why this year is so important for them. They don't have to win the Stanley Cup, obviously, but I think they have to show the sign of progress and the guys that are building around him and the prospects showing up and, getting to see the goalie of the future and Wallstedt playing more games, which he will. Like, you got to see if you're Kaprizov what they have going forward here. If you want to, there are not many guys in free agency next summer you're going to be able to get. They're not a lot of big names that they're going to be going at, using their cap space on, right? Is there Brock Nelson's out there? Like, I don't know. Are they
going to have cap space?
They'll have some. Yeah, they'll have some. And then, a lot of guys that they have their no move or no trade clauses or go to modified and stuff. So you can also do that. But yeah, they won't have, like, Draisaitl is going to be a free agent next summer. Mitch Marner will be a free agent next summer, right? Like, they're not going to get Mitch Marner. So, but that's another argument for another day about what they do with their cap space once they get there, unless they sign more people and then all of a sudden they have no cap space. So,
I mean, that's been the trend, but we'll see what happens. Next guy we got to talk about, Russo doing the thing out in Vegas, talking to all the players at what is this technically?
It's like, I think it's like NHL player media tour. Like they have one in Europe too, where they have a player from each team come and go through the quote unquote car wash of interviews and promos and all the rights holders and TV have all their different things that they shoot. So, but yeah, they had Brock Faber there for the Wild, doing his rounds after the year that he had. So it's a lot of fun to go to, and you get so much information, so much great insight from these players in a more relaxed setting. Because there's a player, and then there's like 3 or 4 writers that are there.
Nice. Well, and very out of place, but I actually just like spaced on this and realized that the beer I'm drinking right now from Barrel Theory, since it is an evening recording, first one in a while, so I had to have a beer. Break the Bank. How ironic.
Yeah.
How ironic. That is just perfect. Fitting. This is the Kirill Kaprizov beer. It has to be. But he talked to Shane Pinto, and the quote that he gave Russo about Matt Boldy after playing with him at Worlds, this year he's going to get like 90 to 100 points. The way he protects the puck, he's 6'2", he shoots it hard, he's smart, fast for that big of a guy. It's not going to be a breakout year because he already put up 69 points, but I think he could definitely take the next step. I don't hate hearing that.
No, and it's not a stretch. But he had 69, 70 points last year in 75 games. Like we saw when he got hot like a year and a half ago, like end of the previous season, one of the best players. He was playing like one of the best players in the NHL. So I think he has the capability, depending on how the lines look or how it's all kind of put together, of really being that kind of player. And that's why the Wild signed him like early in his career to a 7x7 contract. So I think he's working a lot this summer. He did it at the World Championships, which I know Bill Guerin loves that the players like that go to World Championships. Didn't win, of course, but maybe that gives him a little bit of a boost just being with all those other guys. And he's played for Team USA multiple times, but I think maybe gets a little more of a bump from that. And, he's been all the guys I've talked to, at least, and then working with Tria, said he's looked terrific. So I think that's everyone's in the best shape of their life going to training camp, just like spring training. Everyone has going to have the best season of their career, but like for the Wild to get where they need to go, they need to have the balance of the two lines. You have Kirill's line going, and then if Boldy's line is going to be separate with him and Ek and potentially Liam Ogren, then that could be one fun line to watch too.
Don't tease me with Boldy, Ek, Ogren. That just sounds way too fun. Are you in the camp firmly then that Kaprizov and Boldy should be split?
I think they're good. I think that's what they're going to do to try to start it, because as good as that line was last year, they were so one line dependent, and they have to get Zuccarello going. And Zuccarello struggled without Kaprizov at 5-on-5. And so I think the whole idea is to have balance, and then to have get Zuccarello going and him and Kaprizov together 5-on-5, and then having those two guys split up is really going to give them better feel of matchups, and not quite as easy to defend. So, and if they get Ryan Hartman up there like they did before, maybe get him a big boost this year. He's capable of playing with those guys, had the best year of his career with those guys. So yes, I mean, the camp lines will be through a blender. We don't know what they all will be, but I think they're going to start with the idea of those two guys being separated. So
yeah, no, fair. And I mean, full credit to our prospect guru, Spoke Z, who like the night Ogren was drafted on our live stream, he said, Ek, Boldy, Ogren is the dream line. And I'm so here for it. And I know we mentioned earlier that the Twitter comments, sometimes they can get pretty dark. Sometimes they're awesome, though, because there were several people under that Russo quote that made comments about, oh, really? Do you think Shane Pinto would bet on it?
Yeah. Too soon, or man, oh man. Again, I mean, gambling's a huge story, like a huge story in the league. Like I'm in fantasy football. Like everyone has their vices in that respect, but it's so hard to monitor and check. But
how was the team week one?
Considering my number one draft pick didn't play, McCaffrey.
Did you have Mason? Did you have
I
Mason?
did have Mason,
okay.
And he had 20-something points. And my kicker had 26 points, Moody. So the night he had 6 field goals. So
man, I don't play with kickers. I don't play with kickers. Can't do it.
Yeah, we don't play with defense. So we have no defense. We just have kickers, but and everything else. But yeah, so that was a last minute adjustment the other night of like, oh, he's out, and it's a Monday night game too. So I'm glad I had Mason, or it'd have been like 0 points there.
Well, I've got it. I have him in one of my leagues, and I would not have gotten it, but we were doing our Judd's Buds live stream that night, and one of the viewers like literally said like, hey, if anyone's got McCaffrey, make sure you switch your lineup. I'm like, holy crap, thank you so much. Yeah. Shout out Sean Cosgrove.
So I knew there was a risk in taking him number one, but I still think it's going to pay off. But it just
how do you not take him?
Yeah, I mean, if he's healthy, in which he's supposed to be a minor injury, but anyways,
I say sit him the next 2 weeks and let him get healthy and be happy. I'm good with it. All right. Well, speaking of guys that if they're healthy could have big years, I know you wrote a story recently on Marco Rossi. Like, let's talk here, because I know he's obviously not blind to the fact that there have been, trade rumors spiraling. Where's he at going into this season?
Well, it's interesting because like he had a chance to play for Austria at the Olympic qualifiers, right? They're trying to qualify for the Milan Games, but he had conversations with Bill Guerin and with John Hines, and they made it clear it's such a huge year for him that it makes sense to be training with the guys starting in mid-August in Minnesota. And he said it was tough, but he goes, you have to look at the big picture. And for him, the big picture is this is the last year of his entry-level deal. You have a couple more touted prospects coming down with a year off and height up the middle. He had a terrific year last year, 21 goals, showed he can play at the NHL level and show he can play in the top 6. So I think this is where a year that could kind of maybe turn things to. Maybe you can, even if you're not a believer in him yet, or if anybody with the Wild isn't a believer with him yet, if he has another season like he did last year, I think it'd go a long way to seeing where he fits long term. You say Faber sign forever, like right away. They obviously haven't started negotiations with him yet. They don't have to sign him until the summer. He's the RFA,
Right.
so they're not like there's like a clock ticking for that. But I think he gets it. He knows this year is important, and I think he thinks he can have a 30-goal season. That's not out of the question. So that's his next step, is increasing the offense there. Obviously getting bigger, going to those harder areas, but great kid, just a terrific attitude. Obviously, guys love him, in the room. And so it's fun to talk to him about the season, and went to the state fair and all that other stuff like that. And so, yeah, it's I think he's going to have a really good year. And I'm just curious on how he's used, and curious where he ends up in the lineup, whether it's a third line role, which very well could be the case if the lines look the way we think they're going to look starting training camp.
And just looking at some of the contracts that have been given out to other guys in Rossi's draft class, if he has that kind of season, right, puts up 30 goals, like has a great year to just expand on, a great rookie season, is he going to price himself out of Minnesota?
I mean, that's a good question, because there's a reason why, you wait to sign him, because you want to know how much money you have left, right? Like next summer you're signing Kirill, next summer you're seeing who else is in free agency. So yeah, I think, if you're Rocco Rossi and you bet on yourself and say, hey, if I have another great year, then all of a sudden I'm going to put myself in a good different category. But it'll yet to be determined whether the Wild would be open to investing that, that high of a number on him. But hey, I like guys who bet on themselves and believe in that. And I think he's very much of that kind of player, that really proud guy. He knows what he can do. And I think being able to do it 2 years in a row will be really important for him.
For sure. And I know you wrote a lengthy piece on this, but great guy all around, had a phenomenal career. Alex Goligoski, man they call Goose, calling it a career. Talk about it.
Yeah, he's, obviously a Minnesotan. He's former Gophers standout player, and like for him it couldn't have, he said he hopes everybody, if they have a chance to play where they're from at the end of their career, it's like there's no better way to do it. He kind of just easily transitions into retirement, and all the kids are in the same schools the last number of years, and kind of like fade to the background. But happy for him and his wife. They have their third child, Luca. So like him, the older dad of an infant, both in the 40-year-old range with a young infant. So happy for them, and that'll be another exciting next chapter for him in his retirement. I think he'll get involved in the game too. He'll be part of a front office somewhere. We talked about that in the story as well. But interesting to hear his thoughts on the Wild. Interesting to hear his thoughts on what was a tough situation of being a healthy scratch for a good part of the year. And I think he put it best. He's like, well, there are worse jobs than playing hockey with your buddies and getting to hang out, and 30 minute skate at the end of practice is not that bad, so I think he put it in perspective. I think he had a long career, won a Stanley Cup in his first year, so it helped him have perspective having that long of a career. If his career was shorter and he thought, hey, maybe I could still a lot more years left, and he didn't get a contract offer, then that's one thing. But he felt like he went out on his own terms, in his own way.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, and would not be surprised if he's, I don't know if it's the Wild, but in our player poll for the Athletic for the Wild version of it, it was pretty high up there in terms of teammates saying he'd be most likely to be a GM or executive. Just the way he thinks the game, kind of his temperament, personality. Like he just always been curious about how things are done and how rosters are constructed and like you said, he's been in teams that have done it right. He's been with situations where people don't do it right, and so he knows kind of the both ways that it can happen. So looking forward to seeing what happens with him. But congratulations to Alex on one heck of a career, and it's a beautiful family and gets to enjoy kind of living the dream with 3 kids now. So fun for him.
Have you asked him about the Minnesota Wild tweener frat house? Is he still going to be renting it out? Is that going to change?
Oh, he sold that one. So he did. Yeah. So he will. But Middleton is in that same area, so there's still a Wild presence in that part of the city. But yeah, he did let that one go. So unfortunately, it won't be like, won't be a good frat house for everybody else or hockey house.
I can only imagine. Oh, well, with that, then let's kick it over to an awesome interview we've got for you guys here with, do we dare call him just the Minnesota agent? Ben Hankinson. This interview is brought to you by our friends at Waggle Golf. Waggle Golf believes what you wear on the course should reflect your individuality, who you are, where you're from, your hobbies, interests, and passions. All the stuff that makes you, well, you. That's why every design is inspired by the desire to create a piece of apparel that strikes a chord when you see it. That makes you say, wow, that was made for me. Because in a lot of ways, it was. Ready to get your waggle on? Go to getyourwaggleon.com, throw in promo code SP10 at checkout to take 10% off your entire order. Joining the show today is one of us by way of Edina High School. You'll have to forgive him. Followed by 4 seasons with your Minnesota Golden Gophers. And then after his professional career, he made it his life's mission to get Minnesota hockey players paid as much money as humanly possible. Ben Hankinson. Thanks for jumping on with us.
Nice. I love the Edina and 4 seasons. It's not the 4 Seasons Hotel, right? Because that goes hand in hand with Edina. That's 4 seasons with the Gophers. If I was really good, it'd be 3 seasons or 2 seasons or 1 season if I was really, really good. Thanks for having me, Joe and Scott. I appreciate it.
Nope.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because that is always the fun balance with Gopher hockey players. Like some of the greats, it's like, was it their freshman year? Was it their senior year? And I mean, we usually start in a different area, but let's just talk them real quick. Gopher hockey, we got to be pretty excited and pretty optimistic about the season ahead, no?
Yeah, every year they have some obviously new young talent coming in. They're always fun to watch. The last few years at Mariucci have been extremely exciting and probably just as much for you guys watching, the fans. The people are back in Creighton, an environment that's fun to see, and the players respond to that too. So it was dead there for a few years, right? And now it's exciting, and Bob's obviously he's hungry. He wants to win one, and they have the guys. Jimmy's coming back. That's great. You say who stays 1, 2, 3, 4 years. It's funny. Yeah, the better maybe you are, the earlier you turn pro, but the favor, and that had something to do with Jimmy Snuggerud staying another year. And if you talk to Bob, which is his job to get those guys better, but to get them to stay, and he coaches the Gophers. So he wants them playing for the Gophers. It's all about, look into history. When guys like Jimmy Snuggerud are deciding if they're going to turn pro and make the most money. And thanks for saying, my job is to get them the most, because, sometimes I think I'm just a fair agent too. But my job obviously is to get them the most. But like with Jimmy Snuggerud, whoever it is, Bob's pitching, hey, look at the best players in the NHL. They stayed 3 years. They stayed more than 2 years. The ones that played 1 year are pretty damn good too. But his whole argument is, with his blinders on, and he's right too, be more mature, be more ready, and play longer. There's usually overall there's, not too many guys that make a mistake by playing. But back to the Gophers, they're fun to watch. They'll have a chance at winning for sure. That's like a lot of good teams out there too.
Yeah, it'll be a fun year. And for you, I don't know, it could be zero, it could be a big impact. How much has NIL impacted your work?
Just back in the day when I had an agent, he just negotiated your contract. You didn't talk to him again. Now, fast forward to, 2024, and I started in 91 maybe, being an agent, you do everything. So NIL is a part of it. Not even close to what these schools, the football schools, the other sports is insane, but there's definitely, deals for hockey players. It's just on a smaller scale and probably less of them. But I mean, guys can make 10 grand, 15 grand, maybe, the good players at pretty good schools. I almost feel a little sorry for some of the coaches, especially like I couldn't imagine the arms race you're in with PJ Fleck versus, the football schools. Like that's taken on, at least a third of their time now when it didn't used to be the case.
Well, I think 10, 15 grand is not going to keep a kid in school, right? Like Logan Cooley getting Chipotle for free for a full semester is not going to keep him from going pro. So I guess it's different in that angle, right? It's not going to be changing a lot of your guys' mind about staying when you're in school. And that's kind of your tough balance of you want to get them the most money, but better opportunity for them as a kid to play, right? And
right.
develop.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's an argument there. Chipotle may keep him out of the NHL, not keep him in school, right? All you can eat. Are you kidding? Enough for life. Yeah. And there's a balance there because you probably like to hear this, but it's not all about grabbing whatever you can. And that's where hockey players, I think, are a little different. And my job is to, going back to what you said, Scott, make these guys as much money as possible, but it's also getting them ready for the next level too. And a lot of that success, you put it all in the blender. It's the kids the young men that, don't go after all that. Like if you see a player tweeting about, like in my world, to get a mattress, you can send a tweet out or Instagram post, whatever, to get a Casper mattress or whatever it is. And a lot of guys don't want to do that. And I love it when they don't do it. I had Dustin Byfuglien. We had 75 grand. 50 of it was going to go to a charity. When he won the Stanley Cup in 2010 with the Blackhawks, we had a deal with Captain Morgan's where he was supposed to stand with the Captain Morgan's knee up, salute, and whatever it is. And we had that money guaranteed, Game 7, I think it was, for him to do that and get paid. And the camera, they had a photographer just for Dustin, ready to take the picture. If they win, if he scored a goal. And in my head, watching the game, I was praying that he didn't. I wanted him to score, but the worst scenario in my head that could play out is if he scored, did the pose, they lose the game, and then it comes out, he gets paid for doing that endorsement, and it's a disaster for everyone because you're thinking about, that endorsement all game. So they win the cup. I think he had a goal. And I call him after, didn't get a hold of him. Finally talked to him. I said, hey, did you do I couldn't see, they cut off from you. Did you do the pose? Did they get it? And he said, oh, crap, I forgot. He totally forgot about it when I thought, all right, all is right in the world, at least with Dustin Byfuglien. Those guys that don't care about that, those, I don't mean to say it, but those are the players. And the world's changing, so you can't compare. It's different now, but, the hockey players are different in that regard, and it's not all about the money. And that's what my job is to get them the money, but to have that balance with everything, to not just be about hockey players make their money playing hockey and winning. It's not like other sports, golf and a lot of sports that make their money in endorsements. So thankfully they're not out and have the camera in front of their face or their own phones in front of their face all the time, which is kind of refreshing.
Yeah.
What's up with Byfuglien right now? Where is Byfuglien up? I was like,
he's on the fishing tour. He just stopped by and was up on Gull Lake. I have a little cabin up there. Met him, and he was in a tournament, a bass tournament. Took him out for dinner, and which was fun to see him. He's only put on a few pounds. He looks great. He loves fishing. He's got the great hands. He's pulling in bass and smiling and loving life.
He's not nearly as far off the grid as I would have thought then. And do you have a client, former or current, that you get asked about more often than Dustin Byfuglien?
No, he's one of a kind. I mean, he told me when he signed his 5-year deal, I don't want a 5-year deal. And of course he's just saying that to me. And sure enough, he quit with 2 years left on the deal. It's an 8 and a 6 were the numbers that started. The 1 year was 8 million. The next year was 6. Then he quit, and I told him my kids were no longer going to go to private school. They weren't anyway. But no, like, and he walked away and he said, I told you I didn't want a 5-year deal. It wasn't the money at all. And all he had to do was basically go get some rehab and attempt to come back. And it was a hockey injury. And he just left it on the table and walked, which is insane. He's the more you know him, the more you love him. He's the best.
I was told to ask you where the nickname Hawk came from. If you could explain that one.
Did that really come from Billy Guerin, the GM?
No, it came from one of your players.
Really? Yeah. Billy tells the story. We were together in New Jersey. He was there longer than me. And I told him my nickname was Hawk, and it really wasn't. And he started calling me Hawk. He still calls me Hawk, and he laughs about that. Not that many people call me Hawk. I don't know. Like, this is interesting that you got asked that, because not a ton of people call me Hawk. My dad, God rest his soul's nickname was Hawk. I get called Hank more, but I do get Hawk. And Billy makes fun of me. Who gives themselves their own nickname? I don't know why I said that to him one day.
Hey, like my phone number needs to change for you. It needs to go from Hank to Hawk. So I need to fix that.
I'll take it. I like that.
I need to fix that one.
You got to lean towards the camera real quick for us, if you could, Ben.
I see what you're looking at.
Magnificent stash. Oh my goodness.
Oh, magnificently bad.
The scouting report from your wife and family and that mustache, and where it kind of initiation for this thing started from. Where did it originate from?
God, it was in March, and I went down on a little trip with her down to California to go see some of the players in LA, Anaheim, Ontario, Coachella Valley, San Diego, those teams down there, which is great, by the way, to make it a business trip. And I had this mustache, and it looked like this without these. These are extensions, by the way. I can pull. Oh no, I can't pull them off. So she said to me, like, it was getting old. She said, maybe you should grow those little wings on there, the rolly fingers. Yeah, I couldn't believe she said it. That was like a game on. Like, that was 6 months ago in March. And I don't know why I haven't cut them off. I think they're going to come off soon, but if I had to bet in another week, they'll still be there. But I don't know. I mean, I must have a pretty good wife if she lets me keep these. So I know they're awful. My mother-in-law told me, like, those don't look good. And I said, yes, of course I know that. And she said, well, it doesn't make any sense then. Why would you have that ugly mustache? It makes you look like you're at least 10 years older. And I said, part of it's a look. It's contract time. It's time to get some deals done. I need to have a mask. And I don't know why I still have it, except I have 3 guys still that have to sign. So that's maybe the reason.
Yeah. Well, we see you all summer with that stash, the Beauty League. Obviously, it's really successful. A lot of fans out there on Wednesday nights in Braemar Arena, home of Edina, state champions from last year. Just how did this whole idea of the Beauty League start? And, like, are you surprised it's taken off the way it is? Or I'm sure you're like an agent yourself trying to get people to play every Wednesday, right? Just try to fill out the lineup card. Yeah,
it's like herding cats. The truth be told, these guys, they have other things to do, and this is their cherished summer months. Like, they don't at night. Certainly their spouses, their wives don't want them going out and playing hockey. They have kids. This is their time to be with their family. So I give them a lot of credit. There's some good charities involved. The guys absolutely love it. It's the diehard local guys that come, every time, like the Nate Schmitz and the Seth Helgesons and Ryan Lindgrens and like the Staylocks and the Goligoskis and the guys that love hockey. They love to compete. So once we put a scoreboard up, once you threw refs in there, once you throw fans on there, that's a trifecta. All 3 of those, and you're going to not want to embarrass yourself. So it came about. There's just so many good players around here. There's pockets of hockey players everywhere. And we have a good pocket. We have our camp that started today. Our company, Octagon Hockey, puts on a camp. And today's the first day. We run it for 2 weeks. They skate at Braemar at like 10:30 every day. And there's great players there. And then they work out and they're done for the day, except for this Beauty League. For some reason, we collect them all the best players. There's 100 NHL guys that have played in it. And tonight you'll see like Gensel and McDonough on the same team, or, and that's at the 5:00 game. So it just was an idea, like, let's see if we can make this work. And somehow it has. The kids, the the older grandparents you see at the game that pay $10, kids get in free. I'm sure like there's a lot of people that sneak into, which is okay. And then a lot of money goes to charity, and it's a tribute to these guys, these pro players that come on, I switched it this year. We have a women's team, 2 women's team, which is awesome. That there's about 6 of us that put it together, and it's like it's like putting on it's a big production. It takes a lot of time. Yes, the rosters are all day, the last 3 days, basically, it seems like, with guys coming and going, and then players wanting to know, well, why did he get put on that team? Like, I drafted him, or I want him, or I recruited him, or, it's kind of like, as you could imagine, really competitive, but it's been a ton of fun. The fans love it, and the charities benefit. And that's the biggest reason why we do it. It's been 8 years now, I think.
8 years. Yeah. I think I saw 11-10 game a couple weeks ago, which was crazy. 11-10,
yeah, we love those games.
A lot of obviously big name guys, especially for local legends. And one of them is Ryan McDonough, a guy I know really well from my time covering Tampa Bay Lightning. And I think when he left, it was, hurt a lot of fans, and the room didn't really feel like the same. And then so for him to come back, it seemed like a really special thing for that group. Like, how did that kind of come together? It's very rare for a guy to get asked to waive his no trade clause and leave, and then want to come back, right? Like, how did that kind of all come together?
Okay, when he left Tampa, that was like couple days before July 1st. He was flying home, and we had a call from Julien Brisebois. He broke the news, and he's a shrewd, great GM down in Tampa, and it was a tough move, and we didn't like it. Ryan didn't like it. I didn't like it, and that's the business of it. And he handled it very professionally, because Ryan McDonough is a 2-time Cup champion, the youngest captain in the history of the New York Rangers, and there's a reason. He took it like a pro, went to Nashville, brought his game there, his best captain attitude, and had a good run there. And then I think they were, had 2 years left on his contract. He's making a lot of money. And that's what happened on the business side of it, why Tampa moved him, because they needed the room. They made some signings, made a couple moves, and had to build for the future. And I think it was a good run in Tampa. And all of a sudden, there was some feelers. Teams were poking around on Ryan Mack. And, we kind of got word of it. And all of a sudden, I don't think Barry Trotz, the GM there, was jumping up and down to trade him. He certainly wasn't. But it was kind of a mutual set of conversations between all of us, and Ryan and Barry specifically too, saying, I understand the memories and the connection and your value down in Tampa. And Julien Brisebois, realized when he lost him, it was a major loss, and they brought him back now with Stamkos, going out the door, and they needed to bring some magic back there. And, they did with Ryan Mack, and then Nashville loaded up, and they got Stamkos, they got Brady Shea, and they got some other guys. So it's funny how crazy the world works with, a little give and take. And it was a really emotional return for Ryan Mack. He's one of the greatest of all time. And it was a lot of phone calls behind the scenes before that even happened with Barry Trotz in Nashville, and Julien Brisebois too. And then we had Jake Gensel sign there. I did his contract too. So that wasn't really intertwined, but it was kind of happening, all this summer. And that was a crazy run too. So Julien is a lawyer. He's French Canadian, and took a long time before I really got to know him. He does a great job down in Tampa, and he's a wizard when it comes to pulling off deals. And he pulled a big one there with those 2 guys.
Was it something where, sorry, Scott, well, something where like Julien reached out to you guys and said, hey, we want to bring him back? Or Barry Trotz said that McDonough requested a trade, want to go back to Tampa. Like, was the timing of those things? Was it he wanted to itch back with his family to go back there? Or was it, you heard that they were interested, and then that's kind of how it spurred?
Yeah, I think it there was some rumblings over the trade deadline back in March, when I was starting to go wild with my wings and starting my mask. And then I think that's when we had some conversations with Barry, and then revisited it in the summer with, okay, now they made a playoff run. They used Ryan Mack, or had him for the playoff run. And then we kind of, went back and talked to Barry about it. And it ended up being like the right fit for both. If you talk to Barry, he'd say, no, we didn't want to lose Ryan. And Ryan would probably say, no, I didn't want to leave, Nashville either. But he I think with the special, cups they won in Tampa and Tampa realizing how bad they need them. And then Nashville probably realizing what they could do with the money. It ended up working well for both sides. I think Barry, he probably won't admit it and wanted to do it. I don't know if he did. I'm not saying he did, but I think to do the deal, like he was helping Ryan, but also helping his team.
Yeah. And the Guentzel too, as a guy that, the biggest name in free agency this summer. And I think some people thought maybe he'd stay in Carolina. Obviously, he was a great fit there to see if he could make a little bit of run, help them. Like, how did that all come together? I wasn't sure how the new free agency window worked, where can he get a chance to talk to people or not? Like, how did he kind of become a Tampa Bay Lightning player?
Right. There used to be an interview period they had, which now they've eliminated it. And that was always, you couldn't negotiate or come to an agreement on a contract, but you could talk to teams and figure out parameters. So that created a big gray area. Now that's closed, and they no longer have that. But I did a full negotiation with Pittsburgh on Guentzel before the season, and he was hurt, and we didn't get a deal done. And then come the trade deadline, he got traded to Carolina. I talked to them a little bit, and then they made a run with Guentzel, and then all of a sudden you're at the draft and he wasn't signed. And I think that was a big part of it. Eric Tulsky was named their GM, this summer, and he hadn't been a GM before. And we had a good relationship with him, during the negotiations, and Tom Dundon, their owner, is more involved than most, and had a lot of dialogue with him too, a lot of meetings at the draft. And I think the big reason that he didn't end up, back in Carolina was the deal didn't get done until basically the draft. And once you get that close to, the deadline or the starting point for the next season or the next free agency on July 1st, I think all of a sudden teams start, making moves, and there's a different buzz than there is, in May or June, or, all of a sudden now you're at the end of June, and he got that close, and then there was a big trade. Tampa ended up making a trade and freed up, some space with Utah. And it took like that long, really, really, for it to happen. And I thought he was probably going to end up getting signed in Carolina, but it didn't happen. And that was, I think, the case. It took so long that he got closer to free agency, and boom, all of a sudden it happened quick with the trade and the sign.
I grew up a Penguins fan. Can you just maybe clear up or give a little context to the parting of ways with Pittsburgh? Because it's pretty well known he didn't want to leave. Like, he was very happy there. Was it something that was like a long time coming, and you guys saw that he was going to be moving at the deadline, or did this kind of hit him out of nowhere?
Well, I think with his injury and surgery before last season, he had a surgery about 1 year ago, maybe a week before today. And so he went into the season not 100% clear. And the new GM, Kyle Dubas, was trying to figure out which way the Penguins were going. And if he was 100% healthy, maybe he gets signed. We talked about it a lot. Jake wanted to re-sign with Pittsburgh. I think Dubas wanted to sign Jake, knew how valuable he was. Jake is a loyal, great hockey player, loves Sid Crosby, loves the Hall of Fame cast on that team. So he wanted to get a deal done, and we were somewhat close, but he was hurt. And I think that was the reason it didn't get done. So they wanted to wait and see what was going to happen. And I think Kyle Dubas and the Pittsburgh Penguins' intention was to sign Jake. And I think Jake's intention was to sign with the Penguins. And then Jake was confident that the team was going to, I had questions, where was the team going to go? And he was confident, and it's his career, not mine. He listens to me, but at the end of the day, he's the one making the decision. He thought he was going to end up staying there, and the season didn't end up going great. And it looked like, at the trade deadline, that they weren't going to be, close to that point when they were deciding what to do. Jake was a player that they could get the most assets for in return and do a potential rebuild. And then he ended up getting traded to Carolina, and Carolina wasn't going to sign him. So if you're trying to figure out what Dubas was maybe doing, maybe there was a scenario where he thought if he goes to Carolina, he's still in the East, which normally you really probably wouldn't want to trade, a player like that to the East and re-sign a long-term contract. And he didn't, because, they got knocked out by the Rangers. And then, I don't know. I'm not saying it's the case, but maybe Dubas thought we could re-sign him possibly in the summer too. And I think just the biggest answer to your question, Scott, is I think Pittsburgh didn't make enough of a statement this year to show, everyone involved, most importantly, probably Kyle Dubas, that they were ready to pay Jake, what he's going to get in free agency. And that was the right move for that team at the time where they're going to be rebuilding. You have Sid there. It's just was such a tough dynamic that I think Kyle Dubas did a good job under, some really tough, uncertain times, which way it was going.
I know, like you mentioned before, you have a lot of guys who make a lot of money, or maybe the higher profile players, but I think a lot of pride you probably have in some of the guys that have to really work hard to stay in the league and find their way. And one of my favorite people in the league is Luke Schenn. And if you could put in perspective of where he was like 5 or 6 years ago, kind of on the out, maybe potentially not, being the end of his career to winning 2 cups in Tampa, like what kind of you kind of share about what made him able to kind of stick it out and reinvent himself and become such a huge part of multiple teams since then?
Yeah, that's like, people that and cross paths with, not just athletes, but everyday life. Someone you see works harder than someone else, maybe as a teacher or a bus driver or construction or a CEO or whatever it is. Luke Schenn is a grinder. He's very aware of where he fits in, what he needs to do to improve on, what he's good at. Which is tough for a lot of kids to know, okay, everyone wants to be a scorer. Where do I fit in? Luke knows he's not a scorer. He knows he's a character, tough, shutdown defenseman. And that used to be a big part of the game, back in the day. And it still is, but you have to be able to skate, move the puck, and provide some offense too. Because now defensemen handle the puck and make plays. And that's just as much as defending, because they have the puck and you don't have to defend if you have the puck. So Luke Schenn was at a point of his career, actually, when I started pretty much representing him, that there was a spot he was in where he was sent to the minors and he was told he should quit and walk away. And he didn't. He battled through, and he went to the minors and he put in his time and grinded. And then, found his way to, he's top of the NHL and all-time hits. He's a loved teammate. He played in Toronto, and there was a hero there because he still fights, still protects guys. He's like having a policeman, on your team. Like you look down the bench and Luke Schenn's got it. And no one likes to be that guy, but he's smart enough to know what he does well, and he keeps bringing that all the time. And he happens to be a good player, and he's a big kid, and he's well liked. And now he signed and was rewarded with a 3-year nice contract with Nashville last year and the summer before, and now he's those contracts are fun. I think we were talking about that, you guys, and those are the fun deals. And even the guys in the minors that are scraping for every penny, those guys, and that's, I think, this game that we're all love so much. There's so many great people in it. I think that the ones like Luke Schenn stick around. They stick around and they play longer than the average guy because they get rewarded for the Patty Maroons. The guys like that keep getting deals. Why? Because they're great humans, and they actually help young guys take their jobs. But that's valuable because they're helping the young guys, where some players, they look at the young player as a threat and don't want them to take their job, obviously, which is just human nature. But, it doesn't make teams, better and help teams win. And it's not the character that hockey needs to win. So that's a quick Luke Schenn story. His brother Braden's the same thing. His brother's the captain of the St. Louis Blues, and all he wants to do is win. And St. Louis is in a little bit of a funk now with where they're going, and they made some good moves, and they're going to be better. And he's just constantly, just always talking about the team and not himself. And that's how you get to know your clients too. The ones that aren't complaining about their ice time or their what they're getting paid or how someone's treating them or complaining, but the ones coming with, help us. Who do you have that can help our team win? Those are the Schenns and a lot of our other guys, to be honest.
For sure. And the last player that we have to ask about, and I'm sure you could go on for quite some time on this guy, everything he's battled through. But Brock Besser, quite the resurgence here recently. I got to ask you first, though, before talking about him. For Wild fans, was there ever a point where you thought maybe something's going to get done here? Maybe he is going to be part of the Minnesota Wild?
I think so, yeah. I think there's a need for a right shot scorer to play with a pretty good player on the Wild right now and add some offense. I just think the toughest thing for the Wild and Billy Guerin was the 14 and change million. They're short, and this is their last year of it. So I think that was the big reason it didn't happen, for sure. I think Brock Besser was going to be available at a much bigger discount last year and then scored 40 this year, so the price went up a little bit. Billy still is having a tough time fitting that in. Who knows? I don't know. I'm just speculating like you guys, but yeah. I think they're going to go out and get a player like Brock. Hopefully it's Brock, and as a Wild fan, I think it'll be someone that's going to be really good. And now that the Wild, are close but not there yet, I think that money is going to help. You can get at least 2 good players with that money that'll free up.
I know you have to go here quickly. One last question on golf. I have one question before the golf question is, who's the best golf player in your family?
Oh, that's a great question. My 2 brothers and not me. Maybe my sons. But I just hide behind I have potential. I'll never reach it, but I got potential. I don't play a lot, but I'm decent somewhat when I play. But so my brother Peter was a great golfer, and my younger brother Casey's a good golfer too. So not me.
Fair. Final question brought to you, as always, by our good friends at Waggle Golf. First, make sure you head over to getyourwaggleon.com, throw in promo code SP10 to take 10% off your entire order. Who would make up the remaining 3 golfers in your dream golf foursome? It can be celebrity, athlete, dead or alive, doesn't matter.
Scott, Joe, and Michael Russo.
Oh my God, you're the first person.
You know what?
You just want to win.
That Billy Guerin is the best to golf with. He's an absolute beauty, one of a kind. God, that is such a good question. I would have to really think about that. You mean you got the Tiger Woods and the Michael Jordans and the Arnie Palmers and the Jack Nicklauses. Obviously you step outside of golf. I can't give you an answer right now because, that's besides you 2 guys, I'm going to stick with you 2 and Michael Russo, who actually would be fun to golf with. That'd
be fun. I don't know. Is he a good golfer? I have no idea. I've never golfed with him.
I doubt it. No, because he's good at his job. And he wants
to get cigars.
Yeah. No, you got me stumped on that one.
All right. Next time you jump on with us, we expect you to have done your homework, and we'll get a thorough answer.
Done deal.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining us. I know you're not a huge podcast guy, but I appreciate you jumping on and having fun with us. And congrats on the Beauty League success again. And of course, a lot of your top guys, your clients, will be part of the headlines all season, looks like, this year. So
yeah, thanks for having me, and you guys keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. Good to see you, and we'll catch you at Braemar at some point.
Awesome.
Thank you so much again, Ben. We'll have to get Hank back on, or Hawk, I suppose. But man, I'm sure he has just endless stories from some of these clients that he has. I would love to just sit down and spend 2 hours hearing everything possible about Dustin Byfuglien.
Oh God. I mean, he has so many characters in his group. Pat Maroon, Luke Shen.
He's a character in and of himself too.
Yeah. And the mustache, they should be some marketing with some t-shirts and hats for that. That thing was incredible. I'm curious if he keeps it going the rest of the season into the year, but yeah, awesome to have him on. Obviously a lot of Wild fans or just NHL fans in the area are really familiar with him. A lot of Minnesota players at the Beauty League, of course, which is fun for fans to go to. He's always back there behind the scenes, getting things done, from little stuff to big stuff. So, and obviously the one who's trying to convince everybody to come play, give away some of their summer nights to do it. But yeah, fun to have him on.
Absolutely. Let's kick it over then. Final segment of the show, as always, brought to you by our incredible friends over at Barrel Theory Beer Company. Again, delicious Break the Bank that I've been drinking tonight in honor of Kirill Kaprizov. Everyone, though, make sure you're getting out there every Wednesday for the foreseeable future. Bingo night. And I'm told that it's an absolute banger. I still need to get out there. It's just a little bit difficult with a kid, but I've told the wife we're going to get out there soon. Check their Facebook and Instagram for weekly updates on food trucks, beer releases, you name it, and get ready. The first night of Wild Hockey at home here, hosting Dean Evison, Columbus Blue Jackets. It's going to be here before we know it, and they have the full spread, regardless of what level you're sitting in, at the XL Energy Center, at least as long as that's what it's named. Keyboard Warriors, though, weekly hot take segment. I got a couple here, Joe. First one that I'll lead in with is just one that I'm sure will tickle you a little bit. My hot take is that Michael Russo is going to take every opportunity he can to complain about your paternity leave, but secretly, deep down, I think he loves that he gets to take all these road trips and has an excuse to do so. He's just never going to say that publicly because then he can't complain.
Well, I mean, I think he does love doing the road trips, right? And he gets the Florida trip this year. So like that was part of my contract when I came here, is I get the Tampa and Florida games. He's there enough in the playoffs anyways.
No kidding.
But it's in October this year, and I'll be on leave at that particular point. So I lose out on that one. I win because I'm with my son, but I lose out because I don't Tampa trip. But there's that 8-game road trip, like 14 days in October. So yeah, he will be getting so many Marriott and Delta points. It's not even crazy, but yeah, I wouldn't be shocked, or I wouldn't blame him if he was complaining a little bit about, me disappearing for the first few months of the season. But he's been great with it so far and supportive, and got a chance to meet Connor like at the fair a couple of weeks ago. So I'm not going away forever, and I'll be back, and I'll be taking a lot of the road trips in the second half of the season. So we'll get him some vacation time when I come back.
There we go. My other hot take, hockey based. I don't know if you've got any here, Joe, but this is one I know we've talked about a little bit in the past, but I'm putting it on record here a month before the season. I'm sure something stupid will happen in the meantime that'll change my mind, but I have year after year laughed at the people that want to believe in this hockey team. And this is the year that I'm going to say Ottawa Senators are a playoff team.
Oh man,
a little spice to that.
I don't think they are, but good for you for thinking that. But yeah, I just
you're way too Minnesotan already. Good for you for thinking that. Congratulations on your opinion.
Yeah,
you can tell me I'm an idiot, Joe. It's okay. My feelings.
No, I really just, there's so many teams that I just think would be.
That's the tough part.
Like any teams in the Atlantic, I think the Lightning will be fine. They'll be in that third or probably fourth spot, right? And so, in the Metro, like a lot of those teams,
I think the Metro cannibalizes itself a little bit. I think they're all, like, outside of the couple that rise to the top, like they're all going to be pretty mid, fighting and scrapping for the 3-4 spot. And I actually think the Atlantic takes 2 wild cards, one of which is Ottawa. But it is crazy because you look at the bottom 4 teams in the Atlantic Division, there's not a bad team there. Like even Montreal is like a respectable team that if they're in a different division, maybe you're talking about them as a dark horse to like just compete for a final wild card spot. I don't know. You want some real spice? I'm going to say that the Yzer plan is dead. Detroit Red Wings come in last in that division. There we go. There's all the spice.
Last in the division. Wow.
Again, it's going to be real tight and close, just like we've talked about the Wild in like their group where it's like Utah, Minnesota, Winnipeg, St. Louis. Like that could come in any order, but they're all going to be pretty tight, barring any like significant injuries. I think the bottom 4 could be pretty tight in the Atlantic too, but I think Montreal is better. I think they're going to be interesting and frisky. I think Buffalo is still like on the right track. I don't know if they make the playoffs this year. Again, I'm picking the Senators over them, but I think them and the Senators are kind of the two leading the charge slightly. And I just think Detroit, I don't know. Yzerman has done a great job drafting and developing. He's kind of like Rutherford to me, where like I loved Rutherford in Pittsburgh. He won damn near every trade that he ever executed. He just had self-inflicted wounds every year in free agency. And Steve Yzerman has done just that. His signings have been very questionable, whether you look like down the middle, giving big money to guys that like, sure, like they're a solid third line center, their blue line that he has completely assembled from free agency outside of Sider. Like, I think it's pretty bad. And they've got 4 goalies. I don't know how, like, we're talking about the Wild struggling with 3 goalies. How are you going to figure out a 4 goalie rotation, all of which are worse than what the Wild have? I'm just very, very down on the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah, like, what is it, year 7 or trying to get 6 or 7 of the guys are playing? I think
it's that many.
Well, like he left after the Lightning lost to Columbus, right? So that was 19.
Was that 9? No, that was 18, wasn't it?
No, 18. They went to the conference final. It was
who won it in 19? Oh, 19 was St. Louis. Yeah. Okay, so then 2021. Yep. Got it.
So at least year 5, right? 5 or like, you know, it's
I think that's 6. Yeah, wow. Or 5 or 6. That's still it feels so much less than that. Wow.
Yeah. So
I'm not on board with the Azure plan. I'm not.
Talk about a guy who has a lot of street credit there. You know, you wonder how patient people will be with it. You know, got a chance to hire another coach with Derek Lalonde, who I'm a big fan of. I think he's a great mind, great sense of humor, and he communicates so well. And but I think pressure's on him this year too. You know,
I think he gets one more coach. I think Yzerman gets one more coach. Yeah.
So I mean, you know, you only get so many cracks at coaches, just like Bill Guerin probably know that flat out well here. Like I think he's fired 2 coaches now, and like Hines would be one that will have to deliver for him. So, but yeah, I don't think Detroit's going in last. But now that you bring up some of the issues with the goaltending, especially and they don't have a lot of like bangers up front that can really just, you know, elite level snipers that can, you know,
they're not good players. There's just no one that really pops off. Like DeBrinket's the only one that really stands out. Like I love Dylan Larkin. If you look across the league though and say that like he's your number 1 center, it's towards the bottom of the league for number 1 centers.
Yeah, he's not the Steven Stamkos early in his career, like that kind of guy. Like I like him as a player. I like him as character. I think he's a good fit as a captain there, but he doesn't move the needle a lot for a lot of those things. And I guess you don't know that until you go to playoffs and see how those players like that perform. Maybe he becomes has a clutch gene and he does really well, but like it's just hard to see it right now. But you know, I think we'll find out a lot about the Detroit Red Wings this year, and my friends and family at home I'll be hearing from them for sure if they finish last.
Yeah, you can tell me all the horrible things they want to say about me. I've given you a lot of breathing room here then, Joe. If you have any like semi-spicy takes, because I'm sure there won't be anything near the Ottawa and Detroit worst.
Oh, hot takes would be about a guess on like who leads the. Oh, I was trying to think of a wild one. I was trying to think of a wild like hot take that would be like,
sure.
How about my hot take is that Volstad plays over under in games more than 13 games.
I see that. Like based on the way they're talking, I think that makes sense. Trying to think because you got to think that both Gustafsson and Fleury, assuming health and no trades, whatever, They're both putting up at least 35, right? Give or take. So that leaves 12 right there for Gustafson or for Wallstedt. So you're saying that one of them is going to play less than that. I think that's reasonable. I'd probably, assuming there's no trade or injury, I'm going to go under, but like, I think that's a pretty interesting line to set. I think that I want everyone commenting now on the video. Do you think that Wallstedt is over or under? What'd you say? 13 and a half?
13, yeah.
13 and a half. I think that's a pretty good line, actually. Look at you, the bookmaker.
I'm all for
stay away.
Yeah. And watch, then he'll play like watch he plays like 30 all of a sudden, and then it goes crazy. Something haywire happens or whatever. But I want to see how he does. I think fans want to see the goalie of the future. I think they're that fine line of making sure he's not just a third goalie that kind of just practicing with the team. Like, he needs to have a net and needs to play a lot. And so the dilemma of playing him 65 games in Iowa or playing him 12 or 13 in Minnesota and then having him that practice opportunity. Yeah.
He's going to get a lot of, Russo's just raking in those Delta miles. He's going to get those 35 W miles in like nobody's business this year.
Oh my God. That 3.5 hour drive in his big truck is going to be so much fun. So
I'll volunteer as his personal chauffeur if he makes Swedish meatballs.
All right.
Tell you what, I'll give, depending on who you ask, maybe this isn't that hot of a take, but I feel like a lot of the Wild fandom faithful are not on board with this one. We'll wrap it up with me saying that Declan Chisholm paces the blue line in points this year.
I mean, is he on the power play? Like, that's
in my mind, yes. I think he should be the power play one quarterback. That's my opinion. We'll see if it comes to fruition, but that's kind of the origin of the hot take.
Yeah, like, I think it is, in essence, like, you kind of not say need to, but you probably should get him there. That's if he's going to play third pairing minutes and you want to get the most out of his talent. A lot of his talent is the puck moving and the at the blue line on the power play. But
he's replacement Addison. He's just bigger, and people will like that.
And your buddy Kalen Addison is the Senators now, so in the PTO. Right. So
we hope that he's with the Senators. Tell you what, if he makes the team, I'm doubling down. They're going to win a playoff series too.
Oh God, you're all over this.
They're not doing that.
All of the Senators bandwagon. Holy crap!
No, they won't do that. But I still think that playoffs is realistic for them. But yeah, Declan Chisholm, I think that he profiles perfectly to be that guy that plays third pairing minutes, gets a little bit shelter, like he can kind of play freely, knowing the Bogosian's going to be the stalwart backing him up. And if he gets the power play 1 minutes that I'm really hoping he gets, I think it makes way more sense to have him there than Spurgeon and Faber. I think Faber did well there. He's far better utilized 5-on-5 and killing penalties than he is on the power play. Let Declan Chisholm cook. I'm all aboard the cheese train. He is going to pace the defenseman in points.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's not really that hot of a take. I think he's could do if he gets power play time, he could do that. Just
most fans don't think he will, though. Most fans think that it's going to be Faber or Spurgeon.
Yeah,
I disagree.
We will see September 19th when camp opens, when they do the power play drills and start practice, and we'll heat up the Twitter machine.
Yeah, and hammer me if it's Faber or Spurgeon.
We should have a fantasy hockey episode and do all these over-unders on the Wild predictions for points and all that stuff like that.
And tell you what, we got to pick our own teams too. Between just like Wild players, like we both get a group of forwards and defensemen and see where it rounds out. We could work something out. Or if we really want to go deep with it, we could certainly loop in Z. We'll see. All right. But yes, good roundup here. Thank you again to our good friends at Barrel Theory. Everyone go out and support them. Joe, that's it here. That's a wrap. Do you have any stories coming up here for you and Russo that the folks need to be tuning in for over at The Athletic / New York Times?
Yeah, I'll be having a story on Riley Heidt heading into the rookie showcase this weekend. He'll be one of the top prospects there, trying to make his case to make the team, right? And so I write about asking the question, can he legitimately make the team? And then talked to Bill Guerin about it, and like kind of broke down where his game's at and kind of how logistically it's possible and why it's complicated with the cap and the roster. So that'll be out this week. And then we'll have a lot more stuff leading up in the training camp. Mike Russo has stuff coming from the Vegas and the Player Tour. Had a story with Bill Daly interview that went up today about a lot of league issues going on, and from like the Olympics to are Russians going to be able to play there, to the LTIR and all that stuff. So we'll have a bunch coming up in the next few weeks, and then I mean, before you know it, camp's starting and the season's starting, so it'll be crazy.
It's a whirlwind. Do you know, is there any way that fans can watch the showcase?
It's in St. Louis. I'll have to look up and see. I think there's a way to stream. Usually there is ways to stream. So when we find out, we'll put it on Twitter for you. Or I know the Wild White website might have it as well, where it'll be. But usually those kind of events you can watch online because they have people do the games. So keep you posted on that.
Need it. Perfect. Yep. We'll let the people know. Otherwise, thank you all again for tuning in. If you're new or haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Leave your 5-star reviews. If you want the video access, just find The Soda Pod on YouTube. Otherwise, we're getting there, Joe. Next week, we've got training camp on the horizon. We're going to have real hockey to talk about here soon. I'm so ready to be done with this summer of absolute nothingness and like literally just chasing our own tails, trying to come up with stuff to talk about. Here we go. Hockey is here. Thank you all. Again, we appreciate you tuning in for this installment of Fellowship of the Rink. You stay classy. Stay to hockey.